Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we're talking about a new rumor that just popped up, but this rumor has to do with Nintendo's plans on Switch 2 having to do with a particular franchise, one of my favorites, and that is Metroid Prime. This rumor doesn't necessarily have to do with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, but actually what comes beyond Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and I think when we take a look at this rumor and start to consider the other angles here, it does tell us a little bit more about what else may be going on with Metroid, including Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And so that's what I want to dive into today. But before going forward, let me take this moment to point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell. So I find this situation a little funny because I just talked about this leaker yesterday, but it had nothing to do with something they had recently posted. I was looking into talking about Mario for a while already, and then when looking at things, I noticed a rumor from back in late 2023 from Nash Weedle that seems to be lining up with Nintendo's current plans, which led me to think, okay, maybe there's something here, especially when we take into consideration other things they've gone right in the past, such as Mario & Luigi Brothership, Metroid Dread. And coincidentally, they have another post regarding Nintendo today. Except this time, it's not about Mario, it's about Metroid. And so here is the rumor, or leak, from Nash Weedle. Leak Express. Those of you who follow me already know that I mentioned that Metroid Prime 5 is being developed at the same time as 4. I must have missed that part. It looks like it will feature a vertical exploration gameplay approach with altered gravity mechanics. Obviously, it will be exclusive to Switch 2 and will be released in 2027. So there are actually a few different things we can get into from this rumor, but first, yes, obviously, take this with a grain of salt. It is a rumor. Nash Weedle has gotten some things right in the past, but has also gotten some things wrong in the past, so we'll see what actually happens here. But first, just talking about the idea of Metroid Prime 5 being developed at the same time as Metroid Prime 4. I think some people are going to see this and think, that makes no sense. But I actually think it might make more sense. Let's take into consideration that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond has been in development technically since 2017, at least that's when they announced it. Of course, they also announced the restart in January of 2019. And we would assume that they probably already had some things in motion before January 2019. Point is, the game's been in the works for a very long time throughout the entire Switch era, and here we are in 2025, and we have just one trailer. Now we know the game is coming out this year, and there has been much speculation, a lot of it coming from me, that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is going to be some kind of cross-generation title on Switch 2. And part of the reason I'm so convinced that Metroid Prime 4 is going to have a version on Switch 2 is because I kind of think this game has been saved for Switch 2. We talk about how back in early 2023, we'd already heard about how they were going through the QA testing phases already for Metroid Prime 4. And while there's certainly some wiggle room in terms of interpreting how far into development the game is from just that information, it does suggest that the game is pretty far along, and if that's where we were at back in early 2023, here we are in early 2025, and the game still doesn't have a set release date. It's coming out 2025, but we don't know which month or day, is my point here. And so I think that could possibly mean that Metroid Prime 4 has been pretty much close to completion for a while, and it may have been the intent for already a few years already that Metroid Prime 4 would be saved for the beginning of the Switch 2 era. And I'm not necessarily saying it's going to be a day one title. It might be a day one title. There is a rumor from another place about that, but also Mario Kart seems like a likely launch title right now. But regardless of when Metroid Prime 4 comes out, it seems like it's going to be a title that comes out early on into the Switch 2 generation. Yes, it's a Switch 1 title, but there may be an enhanced Switch 2 version, And this enhanced version might actually be pretty good if they've already been developing with this in mind for a few years now. And so if Metroid Prime 4 is basically done already, then the idea that they could be moving on to developing Metroid Prime 5 soon after isn't that crazy, and there could even be a little bit of overlap here. As they wrap things up with Prime 4, they start with Prime 5. And I think it is a reasonable assumption that Prime 5 would be a Switch 2 exclusive. What throws me a little bit though is this release date of 2027. Now, if the game is ready, sure, but I'm just going to assume that even if this rumor is based off some truth, that they are not going to hit this 2027 date. I think Metroid Prime 4 is just such a huge game that there need to be more than just a 2-year gap between the releases of these games. And there's also been a lot of talk about a 2D Metroid game coming out relatively soon as well. Where does that fit into this equation? Could they both come out in the same year? It's possible. Or maybe we have Metroid Prime 4 in 2025, 2D Metroid in 2026, and Metroid Prime 5 in 2027. That is conceivable, I suppose, and that would be just an epic run of Metroid to start off the Switch 2 generation. And it would kind of remind me of the early 2000s where we saw consistent Metroid releases almost every single year. We had Metroid Prime, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime Hunters, Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime 3. All these games came out in quick succession. So maybe Nintendo wants to take another stab at pushing Metroid this time to start the beginning of the Switch 2 generation, and it may have to do with more than just one Metroid game. If you want Metroid to reach a new level, you have follow-ups that continue to build the audience, and all early on in the generation would probably be the best time to put these titles out there, because that's when people are most eager to buy games and pick up these early on titles. And I had not even mentioned Metroid Prime 2 or 3 Remastered yet. There is an expectation that those games are going to come out before Prime 4, so we're sort of waiting to see when we see these. Now, for clarity, I don't expect 2 and 3 to have the same work done as 1 had, but I do expect some enhancements, as has been rumored for the last few years, so hopefully we see them come out relatively soon. There is the Metroid Prime 1 through 3 art book that's coming out this summer. There's been a lot of speculation that maybe we see 2 and 3 come out before that point. I am inclined to agree. And so it looks like we're going to have a lot of Metroid even beyond 2025, with 2D Metroid and Prime 5. I'm skeptical on the 2027 date, but I do think it makes sense to have a follow-up to Metroid Prime 4 not too far afterwards, if possible. But considering how long Prime 4 took to be made, I can see how many would be skeptical of this, but if you account for the pandemic situation and getting the team together, and perhaps them actually sitting on Prime 4 for a little while already, extending the development time more so while also getting into Prime 5, it is conceivable that Prime 5 could be out a couple years from now, but I'm going to expect it comes out a little bit later, which is why I'm leaning towards 2028 if this rumor is even true. But there's a whole other piece to this rumor that's extremely interesting, where Nash Weedle talks about the gameplay. It looks like it will feature a vertical exploration gameplay approach with altered gravity mechanics. And so when I think about vertical exploration, I assume that means going up and down. Maybe even somewhat like what we see in Breath of the Wild and expanded more so in Tears of the Kingdom. There's a lot of crazy things you can do in terms of the vertical gameplay in Tears of the Kingdom. Ascend, allowing you to shoot upwards, you can dive downwards, there's 3 different realms to explore, and all the gameplay between these areas is totally seamless. There's a lot there, and so thinking about something like that in the context of Metroid could be extremely interesting, especially when we account for a lot of these sci-fi elements and things they could do with that. Here it's mentioned altered gravity mechanics. Perhaps you can reverse your gravity so you can shoot upwards, or vice versa. There is the gravity suit. What if in Prime 5 the gravity suit has more application than just allowing you to move through water easily? What if it's something where you can actually change around your gravity depending on the situation, which could lead to so many amazing different gameplay possibilities depending on how crazy they want to go. Would the gravity abilities be more so focused on how much force is pulling you down versus how much could push you up? Or could they go beyond that and think about making Samus the source of gravity where she's pulling things into her, or vice versa. There's a lot of potential of what could be done there. Pulling in objects, throwing them outwards, flying upwards, shooting down, pulling in enemies, throwing them outwards. Like, there's so many cool little things you could in theory do with that. I assume they're not going to do it all, but it is interesting to consider that they might be building the next Metroid Prime game on Switch 2 with some of these mechanics in mind. And what also intrigues me about this is that if they are considering some really unique gameplay elements for Metroid Prime 5, what unique gameplay elements are there even for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, because we still don't really quite know about those yet, if there are even any. And I assume there will at least be some. Will they completely change our view on what Metroid Prime is? I assume probably not, but we don't know yet. We've only gotten one trailer. And when we think about a lot of big Nintendo games in the past, that first trailer doesn't always tell us that much about the game. Think about the first trailer we saw for Breath of the Wild, or the first trailer we saw for Mario Odyssey. We didn't even know about the Cappy mechanic yet. So there could be some new gameplay hooks that we have not at all considered that could be a big part of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. But what do you all think? What do you make of this rumor and what it might suggest for the future of Metroid? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.